Some believe that before the universe, there was nothing. They're wrong. There was darkness. And it has survived.
Hello, here we go.
I've got a long name. This may take a while.
Set 2 years after the Avengers, Thor the Dark World pits the God of Thunder against an enemy older than the universe itself, who threatens to bring darkness to the Nine Realms. Sky Movies sat down with the filmmakers and stars of the movie to find out more and discuss all things Thor.
Thank you.
So what did you set out to achieve this time round with the Dark World?
Well, you know, we loved ending the Avengers with Thor having Loki in shackles and a muzzle and taking him back up. And if you remember at the end of that film, there were some members of the World Security Council that said to Nick Fury, "You're letting the war criminal go. You know, he needs to be punished." And Nick Fury says, "Oh, I think he will be." And that was always knowing that we were going to pick up with Loki's story in the next Thor film. So that's right where we start, is we see Loki brought in shackles to his father Odin, sort of being brought to task for what he's done in Avengers.
You even think about betraying him?
I'll kill you.
Thor and Loki are back in Asgard, and neither of them have seen Odin, played by Anthony Hopkins, for a while. And Thor is kind of tasked with going out to put out the fires which have started in his absence all over the Nine Realms of the universe.
All yours.
Anyone else?
And Loki is public enemy number one. He's condemned to incarceration for the small matter of eternity.
After all this time, now you come to visit me, brother. Why?
To be written out of history, forgotten, unseen, unheard. You know, to sort of like, to be haunted by his demons in a dungeon.
I need your help. But I wish I could trust you. If you did, you'd be the fool I always took you for.
And then what happens is Asgard takes a huge hit from this ancient race with an ancient grudge. Malekith, played by Chris Eccleston.
We face an enemy known only to a few.
Known only to one.
He's a dark elf. They are an ancient race of the Nine Realms, and they don't take defeat easily.
We wanted somebody who was driven with these evil intent. And we like these movies having a very epic scope to them. And having a villain who pre-exists the universe itself is pretty epic.
Al-Ayafihi Velamefe, Rashidente Ayafanta.
They have a sense of themselves as the superior race and aristocratic. And he is bitterly angry about the revenge. And in order to take that revenge, he needs to get the ether. And that's my first quest within the film, which ties me in with the Natalie Portman character who's getting hold of the ether, which gives me total power.
What will you sacrifice for what you believe?
Well, Jane, you know, we haven't seen her obviously since then, and we know that Thor has been with the Avengers in New York.
Jane.
Sorry, I just needed to make sure you were real. It's been a very strange day.
I am. Jane, what?
Where were you?
She's pretty angry, but she's moving on with her life. She's focusing on her work. She's trying to keep going, but of course, he's in the back of her mind.
Where were you? Heimdall could not see you.
I was right here where you left me. I was waiting, and then I was crying, and then I went out looking for you. You said you were coming back.
I know, but the Bifrost was destroyed. The Nine Realms erupted into chaos. Wars were raging, marauders were pillaging. I had to put an end to the slaughter.
As excuses go, it's not terrible.
Now Jane goes to Asgard, so she's the one who's, you know, this short little woman walking around with all these Amazonian beauties around her.
What's gonna happen?
Hold on.
Wait, what? Jane!
It was definitely funny to have the gowns on all of a sudden, so, but fun for me, because I got to interact with all those characters this time, you know, with Sif and with Loki and Odin and Frigga, all characters who had been sort of peripheral in Jane's world in the first film.
In our story, Thor's, maturation continues, and he goes from being a young man full of ambition to a guy who starts to realize just how complicated the world is and how difficult growing up can be.
You must be truly desperate to come to me for help.
The film is called The Dark World, which is partly the land of the dark elves, but it's also, for me, adulthood, when you start to realize that things are not as simple as you thought they were. So it's watching Thor grow up and sacrifice things he didn't think he had to sacrifice.
You should know that when you betray me, I will kill you.
When do we start?
Was it nice for you to have these two actors in Tom and Chris who are playing the characters for the third time, so kind of know their relationship a lot better than they would have done the first time round?
Yeah, I think, for a director, it was sort of the ideal balance that I inherited two actors who really knew their characters and felt very comfortable in those characters. But we were taking them somewhere they'd never been before. So it wasn't a repetition of something they'd done before. It sort of required what they'd done before, but we got to discover new territory together. Because if you see the film, you'll see that they go through things that they've never been called upon to go through together before.
I'll find a way to save us all.
The hero's only as good as the villain, and in this case, I couldn't be more thankful that it was Tom and Loki opposite Thor, because I think it is the most interesting stuff with Thor's character is that relationship with Loki. And only because of what Tom did with that character has he been in each of these films. I don't think the plan was ever to have him be in all of them, but he's brought so much to the table that it was, without him being there, there was something missing. So it's, all credit to him.
That was from New York.
I like her.
He's an amazing character. He's just so fun and complicated and a mixture of so many things. So it's good. It's a privilege to come back and play him. It's very rare to come back and play a character twice, let alone 3 times.
Your world will be extinguished.
Let's talk about the scale of this movie compared to the first film, because I think by Marvel's recent standards, the first movie is looking kind of small compared to what they've done recently.
It's an epic movie. Epic. Like, yeah, the scope is gigantic. I was blown away, and in 3D, it's just an assault on all your senses.
In any sequel, there's an obligation to sort of expand. So, if you've got 9 realms, if you saw 2 in the first movie, we had to see at least 4 or 5 in this movie. So, our worlds are getting bigger.
I've got this completely under control.
Is that why everything's on fire?
You're on many different realms. So, you're seeing Svartalheim and Asgard and Earth and Vanaheim. And you're just like in all of these different places, and each one has its very specific world.
The very fabric of reality will be torn apart.
So much that I didn't know was there that I'm just shocked. Like, there are things chasing me that I didn't realize were chasing me at the time. So much going on. It's really worth every penny of your ticket money. It's a perfect movie.
If we do nothing, they'll destroy us. You, what realm is this? Alfheim? Dornheim?
New Mexico?
You dare threaten me, Thor, with so puny a weapon?
What? He was freaking me out.
The first Thor movie, released in 2011, charted the arrogant god being cast out of Asgard by his father Odin to live among the humans on Earth till he was worthy of his birthright. Based on the comic by Stan Lee, Larry Lieber and Jack Kirby, the film was one of the surprise hits of the year and was well on its way to making nearly $500 million worldwide.
I now take from you your power. In the name of my father and his father before, I Odin our father, cast you out!
There was a time when potentially audiences weren't going to accept a Norse god with a flying hammer as their brand new superhero.
That is very true.
Were you at all worried about that? And I guess in turn, were you surprised at just how successful he's been?
I was worried about it, yes. You'd be foolish not to be, right? We have these great characters that have a big following from the comic base, but our job is to bring them to the world, basically, and to as many members of the movie-going public as possible. And it's it was that fear, if you want to call it fear, that inspired us to structure that movie the way that we did. Also coming off of the first 2 Iron Man films where we had established a certain tone and a certain reality, right? Iron Man's not necessarily real, but it's a realistic, somewhat realistic tone. And we wanted Thor to fit into that. And as you point out, his Norse heritage, he comes from another planet, he's got a magical hammer, was not the easiest thing in the world to tie those 2 together.
I need a horse!
We don't have horses, just dogs, cats, birds.
And give me one of those large enough to ride.
He's one of the most challenging characters to sort of make accessible, and I think Ken Branagh did an amazing job, first of all, by pulling that cast together. I mean, now that we've seen Chris Hemsworth be Thor, no one else in the world could do that role, and I think the same thing's true for Loki with Tom. So he launched the character and made people realize how well it could work.
Loki, what are you doing here?
I had to see you.
What's happened? Tell me, is it Jotunheim? Let me explain to Father.
Father is dead.
I think we were just as kind of nervous about it as anyone else. You know, the idea of red cape, big magical hammer, long blonde hair, you know, was kind of ridiculous. And I think that, you know, Ken had a great balance of sort of humor in that film with the action and drama to, you know, for people to sort of buy into it.
I'm sorry, but I can't take you.
And this is where we say goodbye.
Thank you.
I think we all were unaware of the success it would have, obviously hoping that people would like it, as you always do when you make a movie. And of course, Chris it was sort of his first big movie, so that was, and now he's like a major movie star on the second one.
That's more like it.
And in terms of what it feels like, I mean, quite literally what it feels like to put on that cape and to pick up that hammer. And has that changed between the very first time you did it to when you were doing it for this movie?
I mean, it's still as uncomfortable as it was the first time around. There's certainly, I guess, you're somewhat prepped for that uncomfort. But I mean, the mechanics of it aren't overly functional. You know, especially in the fight scenes when you're being ratcheted through walls or you're forced to kind of bend and do some big stunt, and you're kind of locked in, you know, 3 or 4 positions. It's tough, but it's cool. You know, Anthony Hopkins on the first day shooting said to me, "Oh, just look at this. You know, no acting required here," and it's true. It sells such an image of what we're trying to sell, so it's we can just get on with the truthful, subtler versions of it.
You've forgotten everything I taught you. But a warrior's patience.
While you wait and be patient, the 9 realms laugh at us. If the old ways are done, you'd stand giving speeches while Asgard falls.
You are a vain, greedy, cruel boy!
And you are an old man and a fool!
I don't like to talk about money because it's an ugly thing, but it would seem only appropriate to mention that right now you have both the 3rd and 5th highest grossing movies in the history of cinema with Avengers and Iron Man 3 accordingly. Congratulations, first of all. Is there some kind of secret to Marvel's success at the moment, and what it is about your films that audiences just seem to really love?
I'm going to give you a very cornball answer. We just work very, very hard on them. And we don't take anything for granted. We don't take the success that you've just mentioned for granted. You know, we just finished this most recent Thor film about 2 weeks ago and have been working on it for 2.5 years every day to make it as good and as fun as we can be, and never take it for granted the audience is going to come anyway, or our fan base is so large that they're going to come anyway. They need a reason to come, and they need a reason to stay, and they need a reason to come back. And each and every movie we make needs to be that reason. So it's just a lot of hard work from a lot of people at the studio.
Thor, your bravery will not ease your pain.
There is something really exciting that you do, because I mean, if you look at the list, you've got Shane Black, Jon Favreau, Kenneth Branagh, to an extent Joss Whedon, and now Alan Taylor. These are directors that have not been handed the budgets that you hand them, and not proven directing action in some cases to the level that these films contain. it's quite daring what you do, and yet you always seem to come up trumps. How is that?
Come up trumps. Well, it is our belief, frankly, that we have a very solid infrastructure at Marvel Studios and a lot of very, very talented people that work at Marvel Studios. And we have relationships with, we believe, the best artists and the best technicians who know how to do those larger action sequences, from the visual effects vendors to our previs teams, to our animatic teams, to our storyboard artists. So that sort of liberates us to say, okay, we're not going to rely on the director to bring know-how to all these things. We have that know-how. We want directors to come in to bring something else. We want directors who can elevate all of this artistry and make unique use of it. And Joss is the best example of that, because Avengers was always, the most important thing about Avengers was not the spectacle, was not the action, of which there's obviously a tremendous amount. It was the character interactions. It was the humor between the characters. It was the emotion between the characters. And that's what we thought he would do an amazing job with, and he did. So when we meet with directors, it's not about what they've done, it's about what we believe they can do combined with our characters.
In terms of the director of this film, he's coming off the back of just one of the greatest TV shows of all time, in Game of Thrones. I assume you'd seen his work. What made you go, Alan Taylor, the right guy
Well,
for the
I mean,
job?
it's not just Game of Thrones. It's Mad Men, it's Sopranos. Somebody just reminded me the other day he did episodes of The West Wing. I mean, it is sort of, if television is having a renaissance now, which I think it is, he has been a big part of that. And when we started looking at TV directors, his name just kept popping up on all these great shows, culminating, of course, in his great work of Game of Thrones. And Thor is a different tone and is a different texture than Game of Thrones, but it shares enough of that sort of fantasy DNA that I thought maybe he'd be interested. Maybe his work on Game of Thrones will make him interested in maybe coming to do this movie for us, and thankfully he was.
It was absolutely necessary preparation. I was thinking if I'd come off Mad Men or Sopranos and tried to step into this, I would have fallen on my face. So Game of Thrones was a necessary warm-up in terms of trying to do scale, trying to do, and sort of teaching me that you could do fantasy and also ground it in a kind of real human experience, which is what I think Game of Thrones does best, and what I tried to bring into this.
I'd met Alan on 2 occasions before this and he didn't give me the job, so it was 3rd time lucky. And that was a major attraction because I think one of Game of Thrones' strengths is the performances. It's got scale, it's got sci-fi elements, it's got extraordinary characters, but you always believe in the reality of the characters, and I think Alan was a very good choice for this film, for a Marvel film, because it keeps the actors happy. Because when you've gone through the makeup and the costume and you get your dialogue, you actually want to do some character work, and he is brilliant with actors.
What makes you think you can trust me?
I don't. You should know that when we fought each other in the past, I did so with a glimmer of hope that my brother was still in there somewhere. It was hard to think of anyone but Ken Branagh directing me for this film or to continue on this film. But, you know, Alan was fantastic, and I'm a huge fan of Game of Thrones, and I just finished watching, the series and loved every aspect of it. You know, the way it tied in there was a heightened reality to that, but it was grounded in an organic kind of truth, and that was what he wanted with Asgard, to feel like it was a place, and it was accessible and has were the characters. And it does. It has a Viking, battle-torn kind of feel to it. And there's a history to it, I think, this time round, which is a great sort of, next evolution from the first one.
Jane, I fought to protect you from the dangers of my world, but I was wrong. I was a fool. I believe that fate brought us together.
I mean, I didn't have any action sequences that I dealt with him for, but he's very, very good and very smart in his little tweaks. Darcy's a fun one because we've established her already, and her part is pretty straightforward. But if he has an idea, he'll just come whisper it and then leave. He'll just come, drop a brilliant little nugget, and then peace out. He's gone, and then it just changes everything.
We're from different worlds. Maybe they're separate for a reason.
He has such an incredible visual capacity to imagine this wide scope for the film. That was really impressive, to get to watch it after being on set. You're like, oh my God, everything was in his head and it just made it on screen. And then he also has, he has this philosophy PhD, so like every theme and relationship in the movie has some like philosophical background. He'd, you know, be like, this is, you know, really much more Hegelian now that we're changing, you know, and he'd talk about it in those terms, which just gave a sort of like different level to the movie, I think.
That's amazing. I'd probably need an encyclopedia there going, who are we referencing?
I didn't understand a word of it, but I was impressed, is what I mean. And I think that there's just a lot more thought than, you know, we feel it on the like really fun entertainment level, but he's got something much deeper going on underneath.